All right, we are back, and this time we will indeed add some photographs to our article. Show you how to do that in Joomla. Let's open up our control panel and go to Article Manager. And this is how we access articles that have already been created. Just click on the article itself once, and it will open up the article that you can make some changes to, do any editing, add some photographs, add some video, whatever you like. By opening up the article. We see our lovely document showing up here in our JCE editor, and it's all ready to add some photographs. However, before we do that, what we need to do is get our images ready to bring in. And what I mean by that is we need to get them to be the right size. As most of you are probably aware, the photographs that we take with our digital cameras these days, even with an iPhone, are just way too big to bring into an internet document like this, a web blog. And so what we need to do is get them to be the right size before we bring them into our article. And if you're not exactly sure how to do that, we have created some tutorials here that will help you be able to resize the images to be exactly what you want for bringing them into articles in Joomla. Check out our Photoshop skills on resizing images. We've actually created 4 different ways that you can resize images. And we've also created some tutorials on how to resize images using a program called Lightroom, also from Adobe. And especially the last article in that series, or at least currently the last article, shows you how to export. And in that export process, you'll see how easy it is to set the size that you want to be more appropriate for your Joomla articles. But the method I think that I like the best of all of the different ways that we have showed you is the method of using droplets. This is really cool, especially if you have family members or staff, employees working at your organization that are just have a difficult time understanding how to resize, and you just want to make it easy for them. Check out the tutorial on creating droplets using Photoshop, and I'll demonstrate how easy that is. All right, so I've opened up 2 folders here. One you'll see has the Photoshop droplets already created, ready to go. And over in this folder, I have 4 images that I want to bring into our article. Right now, they are full size JPEGs. You'll see the dimensions, just about 5,500 pixels in width. And that's way too big for our articles. We want them to be more like 300 pixels in width or 600. We might choose the leading article in some cases to be as big as 900, but that's about the most you'd ever want to go for an image in an article on your website. And I want to show you how easy it is to take these camera size files and resize them for our article. And if you look closely here, you can see that I have actually created 12 droplets, different droplets. The first 6 are designed to work with horizontal images, and the remaining 6 have been created for vertical images. And we can drag and drop these images to whatever size we want to resize it. If you can, I don't know if you can read it, but we've got one that's ready to resize this down to 100 pixels in height, 150 pixels in height, 300 pixels in height, 600 pixels in height, and so on, 900, 1200. Well, I think the most that we would want to see this image in our article is 300 pixels in height. So we'll drop that on the droplet. It actually opens up Photoshop, resizes it, and drops it in our folder of JPEGs in the size of 300. If we open it up, we'll see that girl has showed up, and if we click on it and look down at the dimensions, we see that it is now 300 pixels in height by 200 in width. Let's resize our other images. This one I'm going to use as a leading image, and I think that I'll go for 900 on this, but we'll want to pop this in the horizontal droplet, the horizontal 900, and that'll open up Photoshop and send it to the appropriate folder. There it is showing up there in the 900 JPEG folder. And these other 2, I think we can just drag and drop both of those on the 300 horizontal. And you can see you can do this in a grouping. You could have 1,000 images, grab them all, drop them on a droplet, and in a couple of minutes later you'll have them all resized to the size that you want to use for your articles. So that's pretty sweet, especially if you have people in your group that are just a little bit confused as to how to resize an image. This makes it very easy for them to do. Okay, so now we are ready to go back to our article and start popping in the images. And the way you do that is put your cursor directly in front of where you would like to have that first image. And I want that first image to actually be on its own at the top. So we could even kind of scroll down, hit the Enter key, and then put our cursor up there. And the way that you add an image using the JCE editor, they make it very easy. You just look for the little icon that looks like it's a photograph, click on that, and it will open up a little file uploader system here. Look for the icon again that is an icon of an image with a little up arrow in front of it. Looks like a golden sunset. And we could either drag and drop the image from our hard drive right to this little window here, or we can hit the Browse button. And we'll go to the folder where you saved those, and I believe it was in the JPEGs 900 folder. So just double click on that, and it shows up here, and hit the Upload button, and that brings that image, actually transfers it from the hard drive of your computer up to your host provider, so it's now residing on our server. And now that it's there, you'll see that it kind of shows up as being a little highlighter or bolded there. Just double click on that again, and you'll see it show up at the top here. And the next thing we want to do is add some descriptive text that tells what this image is about. And there's several reasons why you want to do that. One is for the vision impaired. As they browse your site, they won't actually be able to see the image, of course, but they will hear the description that you type in here. So let's type in something that describes this image. We'll say, and so there we have something that will help our vision impaired friends know what is happening in our article, but also it is another way that search engines will take a look at your site. If we just had the original file name showing up here, which it was going to by default, image2654.jpg, well, if Google or other search engines visit your site with their little robots and they see that the alternate text is just image2654, well, they're not going to be able to do anything with that. However, if we have this wonderful description in here, the robots are going to take note of that. If you've ever wondered why when you type into Google the name of some location or some fruit or anything that you type in, let's say Bavaro Beach, you'll see that not only are there some articles listed here, but there's also a section called Images for Bavaro Beach. And if your image has a wonderful description on it, Google will perhaps list that image according to its description, and people might actually click into your website because they find your image showing up here in an image listing on Google. So it's important. Take the extra minute or so to come up with a good description there. And because we want to use this image front and center, there's nothing really else that we need to do. We can just hit Insert. It shows up in our JCE editor, and you'll notice our cursor now is right at the very bottom right corner. If we want to give a little space in between the image and the first text, we could add a little spacing there. And for these leading images, I usually like to just center them up in the article. And we can do that just by clicking anywhere in the image. You'll see the little border show up around it, telling you that it has been selected, and then we can just hit the center image, and that will center it up. Now, as I look at this image, I'm thinking that it might have looked a little better had we cropped it in Photoshop rather than just use our image droplets. Sometimes for a leading article, it's nice to give it more of a widescreen aspect ratio, almost like a movie theater presentation or a panoramic image. And in that case, we would use a different method than our droplet. Let's open up that image again and resize it manually in Photoshop this time. And that's very easy to do as well. If you're not quite sure how to do that, we do have that tutorial on just resizing images in Photoshop. Control-Alt-I will, first of all, bring it down to the approximate size that we want with a width of 900. Hit OK. At first it looks like it just made it way too small, but it's just showing it to you in proportion to the size of the original image. If we hit our Control+ key and bring it up, we see that the image is still quite large, and even as we bring it up this high, it hasn't lost any resolution. And then to give it more of a widescreen aspect ratio, we might just click on the crop tool and bring it down at the top a little bit, bring it at the bottom, something like that, and hit the Enter key. And now do a Save As or Control-Shift-S, and we could just rename it _900 to let us know that that has been resized. And now we could go after this image again. You could just select it, delete it, and open up our uploader program from JCE and go find that image. And here it is here. Hit Upload, and you see it bolded there. Click on it, add your alternate text. Okay, and then we can hit the Enter key and center it up, and I think that looks a little better. If we wanted to take a look at how it looks on our website, let's just do a save. And now we see our article showing up on our website. I know that white background is very quite an eyesore, but we'll fix that very shortly in a tutorial coming up. Don't worry about that. Okay, so let's go back to our article, add a few more images. Again, put your cursor where you would like to insert your next image. I think where I want to stick it is in paragraph 3. So I'll stick my cursor there, and we'll go to our image uploader. These I think are now in the 300. And let's choose that one. Double click on it to bring it up, and then add our alternate text. And this time we do want to work with the image a little bit. If we were just to hit the Insert key right now, the image would come in all right, but if you look up at the preview, you'll see that the text is currently not going to flow around that image. And I prefer to have the text kind of flowing around the image. And so what we need to do for that to happen is we need to work with the alignment. Let's choose the left alignment. You'll see that the text in the preview now jumps up so that it's beside the image. But as we look at it, we see that the text is scrunched right up against the image. There's no padding in between the image and the text, and that can look a little awkward. So we want to add about 10 pixels of white space there. And the way we do that is, first of all, uncheck equal values, unless you want 10 pixels of space at the top and at the bottom, at the left as well. But I prefer to put 10 pixels to the right of these images, and then at the bottom, let's say 5 pixels, and we don't have to worry about the left in this case. Now our preview shows up, and I think that does it. We can hit Insert and see what that looks like. Okay, so there you go. Well, as I look at it, it's probably a bit more than what I wanted. So if you want to go back and fix something, you can just click on the image itself, go back to the image browser, image uploader tool, image, I guess in this case, an alignment tool as well. Let's change our bottom to be less. Let's maybe give it 2 pixels. Usually 5 works. And this sometimes, I guess it just is too much, just the way the text happens to be hitting it. Let's try hitting update, and that looks a little better. Now maybe it's not quite enough, but we'll let it go. All right, and now let's say that we want our next image to show up on the right-hand side. How do we do that? Well, you might think that you should put your cursor over on the right and then stick your image in. But no, that's not quite how it works. Even if you want your image to be over on the right-hand side of your column, still find the paragraph that you want the image to go with and click right at the beginning of that paragraph, and then go after your next image. And this time let's choose the smiling girl and hit upload, double click on it, and then add our text. And here now, this time, our alignment will set to be on the right. We're going to uncheck the equal values, and this time at the left we're going to have 10 pixels. And again at the bottom we'll try, well, maybe let's try 3 this time. And give it a look. Hit the insert button, and now we see our girl showing up on the right side. And maybe just to show you some of the problems that you might run into, well, let's try putting an image right here at this paragraph here. Now, even though it looks like this paragraph is still showing alongside of this image, that may not necessarily be the case. Even though this is a what you see is what you get editor, what you see is not always what you get. And the reason that is because the way you're looking at it here, it can be redefined depending on how wide you have your text editor, for one. And so as we scroll this back and forth, we see that we can get to a point where that paragraph is no longer flowing alongside of that image. And so depending on the width of your column on your website, let's just save this. Let's just do a save, go look at it. And we'll see that because we have a column right now that is the full width of our website page, we do see that the text of that second paragraph is still flowing next to that image. But that's when it's showing up at our home page as a featured article. A little later, it might be in another column in one of our blogs that may have a smaller column width than the full page. We might have our column only showing maybe 2/3 of the width of the page, and so that there's room in a sidebar for other items that we want to show alongside of our blog articles. And so in that case, once it gets to the actual blog section with a sidebar alongside it, then that text is no longer going to be showing up here. So when we're talking about what you see is what you get in the way of a text editor, really a lot is dependent on how wide you have opened this window up in comparison to the width of the column on your website, as to how close it's going to be to what you see is what you get. So let's say we wanted to put another image right here. Let's drop in that other horizontal. Click on it, give it a description, and we want to send it. Usually when I have one image to the left like this, the next image I will probably want, just to give the whole article some balance, I'll probably want to stick that on the right. So let's put her on the right, and the way she's looking into the image, it's gonna just look better on the right anyway. And so let's change this. Let's align it to the right, change our equal values, put 10 pixels of padding to the left and 3 pixels at the bottom, and take a look. Well, now she is showing up alongside of that next paragraph, and let's do a save and see how that looks. And even though this paragraph is still next to that first image on the left, it still works. Even at this column width, I think we can just leave it as is, knowing that a little later it's going to be in a column width that is a little smaller, and this image will go a lot better with this paragraph in the end. Okay, and so you get the idea of how to add images using the tools of the JC editor, and finding them on your hard drive, bringing them in, placing them, adding padding. And so with the principles that you've learned in this tutorial, you can really design your articles to have pictures of any size at least any size that is going to fit within your final column width. Let's try and stay within that. Like, you'll notice that the largest image that we have was the 900, and so in theory we need to remember that when we design our columns for later use, that it is at least a column width of 900. And if we know that it's going to be smaller than that, we might start with a smaller image. However, something else to know too is that because these templates are what's called responsive templates, in theory, this template should resize the images depending on the size or width of the person's browser. So even if it gets to be like the size of an iPhone, this image should still work. And that's nice to know. You don't have to go in and resize it, even if your columns do get smaller. The template will do that for you. So that's kind of sweet. It's just getting easier and easier these days of building a website and not having to think all of these things through about, what devices are people going to see these on, what browser are they going to use, and these templates have just thought of everything. And so that's why really it's worth putting down a little bit of cash to license these templates, because they've just thought of everything, and it just makes it so much easier to build websites these days. Okay, well, I believe that should give you an idea of how to do this, and that should wrap it up for this tutorial on how to add photos to your articles.